In the ancient world, where tales were passed down through generations and sacred texts were whispered among scholars and scribes, one particular book sparked both fascination and controversy. The Book of Jubilees. Known as Little Genesis for its detailed retelling of early biblical stories, Jubilees was a daring attempt to fill in the gaps left by the canonical scriptures, adding new layers of interpretation and cosmic meaning to some of the Bible's most famous narratives. But what began as an attempt to deepen the understanding of creation, divine law, and humanity's place in the universe eventually became a source of contention, a book so challenging to established beliefs that it was banned from the official canon. The Book of Jubilees opens with a radical retelling of creation, one that diverges significantly from the familiar verses of Genesis. In Genesis, creation is a relatively straightforward process, with God forming the heavens, the earth, and all living things in 6 days. But in Jubilees, this act of creation unfolds with new details. On the very first day, God creates the angels, celestial beings who are each assigned a role in governing the universe. These angels are not merely witnesses to creation, they are participants, charged with maintaining order in the cosmos. They oversee time, regulate the movements of the stars and planets, and ensure that each day, season, and year unfolds in accordance with God's divine plan. This vision of creation was unlike anything found in other Jewish texts of the time. To readers of Jubilees, it was a revelation, a glimpse into the hidden workings of the universe, governed by a vast hierarchy of divine beings under God's command. But to religious authorities, this depiction was unsettling. By giving angels such a prominent role in creation and cosmic order, Jubilees seemed to challenge the core belief in God's unique sovereignty. If angels governed time in the cosmos, did this imply a more distant God? To traditionalists, this notion of a layered cosmic hierarchy felt like a step too far, an idea that strayed into the realm of speculative mysticism. One of the most striking departures in Jubilees is its claim that the world operates according to a 364-day solar calendar, a sacred rhythm that aligns perfectly with God's divine order. According to the book, this calendar was established by God himself, and the angels are its custodians. Each day, week, and year fits into a celestial pattern, a calendar that reflects the cosmic harmony of creation. In contrast, many Jewish communities of the time used a lunar calendar, which followed the cycles of the moon and marked important dates, such as festivals and holy days. For Jubilees to declare that the lunar calendar was a corruption of divine time was audacious. In essence, it accused the religious authorities of practicing a flawed version of God's order, suggesting that by following the lunar calendar, they were unwittingly straying from the true path. This was not just a minor disagreement about dates and times. It was a profound philosophical and theological statement, one that questioned the very structure of Jewish religious life. Religious leaders who were already uneasy with Jubilees' cosmology found this attack on the lunar calendar to be another reason to view the book with suspicion. The Book of Jubilees also takes a bold stance on divine law, arguing that God's commandments did not originate with Moses on Mount Sinai, as traditionally believed. Instead, Jubilees claims that these laws were woven into the very fabric of creation, present from the beginning of time, and given to humanity by God through his angels. According to Jubilees, Adam received the commandment to observe the Sabbath, to keep the laws of purity, and to adhere to marriage regulations. Noah, too, was bound by divine commandments, as were Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all long before the official giving of the law to Moses. This portrayal of an eternal, universal law was at odds with the mainstream Jewish view that saw the Mosaic Law as a unique covenant between God and the people of Israel. The law was central to Jewish identity. It was the defining feature of their relationship with God, marking them as his chosen people. By suggesting that the law was not exclusive to Israel, but instead had existed for all of humanity from the beginning of time, Jubilees risked diminishing this special covenant. For many religious authorities, this universal interpretation of divine law was troubling, as it implied that the distinctiveness of Israel's calling was less significant than they believed. The narratives within Jubilees also took familiar biblical stories and presented them with intriguing and sometimes unsettling twists. Take, for instance, the story of Cain and Abel. In Genesis, Cain kills Abel in a fit of jealousy, and God punishes him for this act of violence. In Jubilees, however, The murder of Abel is not just a tragic family dispute, but a cosmic transgression, a violation of divine law that disrupts the sacred order established by God. Cain's act of murder is portrayed as a pivotal event, a breach that sets humanity on a path of rebellion against divine law. By framing Cain's crime in such a dramatic light, Jubilees emphasizes the idea that even the earliest humans were bound by God's eternal commandments, a message that underscored the book's insistence on the universal nature of divine law. Jubilees' retelling of Abraham's story similarly emphasizes the patriarch's strict adherence to divine commandments. According to Jubilees, Abraham was not only faithful, but also a devout observer of God's laws, rejecting idolatry, smashing idols in his father's household, and living according to God's commandments, long before Moses received the law. This depiction of Abraham as a pre-Mosaic law-keeper reinforced the book's claim that God's laws were not limited to Israel, but were part of a timeless cosmic order. While some may have admired Abraham's righteousness, this portrayal was controversial because it presented the patriarchs as law-abiding figures who lived by divine commandments even before the Jewish nation was established. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the Book of Jubilees was its portrayal of a figure named Mastema, who plays a role akin to Satan, actively working to test and tempt humanity away from God. Mastema is portrayed as an adversary who orchestrates events to undermine the faith and righteousness of God's people. His presence in Jubilees introduces a dualistic element, suggesting a universe where good and evil are in constant opposition, with angels on one side and Mastema and his followers on the other. This depiction of a cosmic struggle between divine and demonic forces was unusual for Jewish thought at the time, which generally focused more on human responsibility and less on an independent, active force of evil. In traditional Jewish belief, God is the ultimate sovereign, with all things under his control, and the concept of a Satan-like figure with independent power was not emphasized. Jubilees, however, introduced Mastema as a powerful adversary who actively sought to disrupt God's plan. This portrayal raised complex theological questions. If Mastema could act independently, did this mean that evil had a power of its own? Was God allowing Mastema to exist as a test, or was there a darker aspect to creation itself? These were questions that mainstream Jewish thought was not prepared to address, and the presence of Mastema in Jubilees may have contributed to the book's ultimate rejection. As the religious authorities moved toward defining a unified set of sacred texts, they found themselves faced with difficult decisions. The beliefs and interpretations offered by the Book of Jubilees were radical, unsettling, and in some cases, almost heretical by the standards of traditional Jewish teaching. Its insistence on a specific solar calendar, its expanded role for angels, its portrayal of a universal divine law, and its dualistic cosmic struggle all set it apart from the other texts that would eventually form the canonical Hebrew Bible. When the early Christian authorities later took up the task of defining their own canon, they followed the Jewish tradition in excluding Jubilees. To the early church, which was trying to establish a unified doctrine, Jubilees presented too many complications. Its views on time, divine law, and spiritual warfare were not easily compatible with the teachings of Jesus and the apostles, and so it was set aside, left out of both the Jewish and Christian canons. Despite its banning, the Book of Jubilees never fully disappeared. In Ethiopia, it found a home in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, where it is still regarded as part of the biblical canon. In the 20th century, scholars rediscovered it among the Dead Sea Scrolls, confirming that it was once revered by certain Jewish sects, particularly the Essenes, who saw in it a reflection of their own beliefs about purity, time, and divine order. Today, the Book of Jubilees is seen as a valuable insight into the diversity of early Jewish thought. It reminds us that, in the ancient world, religious beliefs were not yet uniform, and that different communities held different interpretations of divine law, cosmic order, and humanity's relationship with God. The banning of Jubilees in some ways marked the beginning of a more rigid orthodoxy. But the text's survival is a testament to its enduring appeal and its power to provoke thought, even centuries after it was cast aside. Thus, the story of the Book of Jubilees is one of both reverence and rejection, a tale that highlights the complexities of faith, authority, and tradition. For those who embraced it, Jubilees offered a bold and expansive vision of the universe, one where divine law was written into the very fabric of creation, and where angels played a profound role in humanity's spiritual journey. But to others, particularly the religious authorities tasked with preserving orthodoxy, its teachings were seen as too unsettling, too speculative, and ultimately too incompatible with the beliefs and practices they sought to unify. Despite its rejection and subsequent exclusion from the canon, the Book of Jubilees has never truly faded into obscurity. Instead, it lives on, preserved by those who valued its insights and later rediscovered by scholars seeking a fuller picture of ancient spirituality. Today, the Book of Jubilees stands as a witness to the rich, diverse, and often contested history of ancient beliefs, reminding us that religious ideas have always been shaped by a dynamic and evolving conversation about the mysteries of existence. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating story of the Book of Jubilees and why it was banned. If you found this video interesting, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment below to share your thoughts. I appreciate your support, and I look forward to bringing you more unique and intriguing stories. Thanks again, and see you in the next video.